She dialed 911 during a robbery, but her trembling fingers hit the wrong number. A deep voice answered, calm, commanding, dangerous. Within minutes, black cars surrounded the diner, and the robbers fled into the night. She had no idea the man she accidentally called was a mafia boss. And he wasn't done protecting her yet. The fluorescent lights of Danny's diner buzzed like dying insects, casting harsh shadows across the checkered floor. Emily Carter wiped down the last booth, her lower back aching from a 12-hour shift that had earned her exactly $43 in tips. Not enough to cover the eviction notice burning a hole in her purse. It was 1:14 a.m. when she heard the bell above the door chime. "Sorry, we're closed," she called out, not bothering to look up as she sprayed cleaner on the Formica table. The response was the cold click of a gun's safety being switched off. Emily's head snapped up. Two men stood inside, both wearing ski masks, one red, one black. The taller one, in the red mask, pointed a revolver directly at her chest. The shorter one flipped the door sign to closed and pulled down the blinds with practiced efficiency. "Register." Now Red Mask's voice was young, nervous, desperate. The worst kind. Emily's hands went up automatically, her rag dropping to the floor. Okay, just don't hurt me." "Move," Black Mask shouted, waving what looked like a crowbar. She stumbled toward the counter, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. Her mind raced. Danny never kept more than $200 in the register overnight. These idiots were risking prison time for grocery money. As she rounded the counter, Red Mask grabbed her by the shoulder and shoved her down. Emily's knees hit the floor hard, pain shooting up her legs. From her position behind the counter, she could see their worn-out sneakers, could smell the cigarette smoke clinging to their clothes. Black Mask was already prying at the register, swearing as it refused to open. "Where's the key?" There's a button underneath," Emily stammered. "The green one." The register popped open with a cheerful ding that felt obscene under the circumstances. She heard them pawing through bills, counting out loud. 200? That's it. Red Mask kicked the counter, making Emily flinch. "Where's the safe?" "There isn't one. That's all we have, I swear." "She's lying," Black Mask hissed. "Check the office." Red Mask's footsteps headed toward the back. Emily's heart hammered against her ribs. This was going wrong. They were panicking, getting angry. Panicked criminals made fatal mistakes for everyone involved. Her phone. It was in her apron pocket. Moving as slowly as she dared, Emily slid her hand into the pocket. Her fingers found the smooth surface of her ancient flip phone. She'd been meaning to upgrade for years, but waitress wages didn't leave room for luxuries. Now she was grateful for its simplicity. Real buttons she could press without looking. She pulled it out, keeping it low against her thigh. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold it steady. She flipped it open, the small click sounding like a gunshot in her ears. 911. Except her trembling index finger slipped, hitting the 6 instead of the second one. 961. She hit the call button and pressed the phone against her ear, barely breathing. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, deep, measured, with the rough edge of expensive whiskey and old cigarettes. "Who's this?" Not a dispatcher. Not the calm, professional tone of emergency services. This voice carried weight, authority, danger. Emily's breath caught. She'd dialed wrong. But there was no time to hang up and try again. Black Mask was still at the register, and she could hear Red Mask ransacking the office, throwing things around. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "They're robbing the diner. 2 of them. They have guns. Please help me." Silence stretched on the other end. She could hear breathing, slow and controlled. Then the sound of footsteps, a door closing, and the voice came back, quieter but somehow more intense. "What's your location?" "Danny's Diner. Route 7. Just past the—" "I know it." A pause. "Are you hurt?" "No, but—" "What are you wearing?" The question was so unexpected that Emily almost forgot to whisper.
What?
I have a blue apron, white shirt. Good. Stay down behind the counter. Don't move, don't speak, don't let them know you made a call. Do you understand me? Something in his tone made her want to obey instantly. Yes. How many exits? Front door, back door through the kitchen, bathroom window. They armed. One gun. One has a crowbar, I think. Stay down. I'll take care of it. The line went dead. Emily stared at her phone, her mind reeling. Who had she just called? What had she done? This wasn't 911. This wasn't the police. That voice belonged to someone else entirely, someone whose help came with a price she couldn't even imagine. Find anything? Black Mask called out. Nothing. Just paperwork and a lockbox I can't open. Red Mask emerged from the office, his mask slightly askew now. Emily caught a glimpse of pale skin, a tattoo on his neck. She immediately looked away. Forget it. Let's go. Wait, Red Mask walked back to the counter, leaning over to look down at Emily. Your tips. Where are they? My apron pocket. $43. He reached down and she flinched, but he just grabbed the bills from her pocket, crumpling them in his fist. She could smell his sweat, could see his hands shaking worse than hers. Please, she whispered. That's all I have. You shouldn't have to scrape by like this, he said, and there was something almost apologetic in his voice. Neither should we. Then they were moving toward the door. That's when Emily heard it, the low rumble of engines outside. Multiple vehicles coming fast. Red Mask heard it too. He froze, one hand on the door handle. What the? Through the window, Emily saw them. 3 black SUVs, pulling up in perfect formation, blocking the parking lot exits.
No flashing lights. No sirens.
Just the predatory stillness of apex predators surrounding prey. Go, go, go. Black Mask shoved his partner toward the back exit. They ran, their footsteps pounding through the kitchen. Emily heard the back door slam open, then shouting, then nothing. She stayed frozen behind the counter, exactly as the voice had told her. Her phone was still clutched in her hand, the screen dark. 60 seconds passed. Then 2 minutes. The SUVs remained outside, engines idling, but no one came in. Finally, Emily heard sirens in the distance, real police sirens. The SUV's engines revved in unison, and by the time she dared to peek over the counter, they were gone, disappearing into the night like they'd never been there at all. When Officer Martinez walked through the door 5 minutes later, gun drawn and flashlight sweeping the empty diner, he found Emily sitting on the floor behind the counter, staring at her phone like it might explode.
Mom?
Are you all right? We got a call about a robbery. Emily looked up at him, her voice distant. They ran. Someone scared them off. Someone? But Emily couldn't explain.
Didn't know how to.
She'd called the wrong number, and the wrong number had saved her life. The question now was, what would it cost her? Officer Martinez helped Emily to her feet, his weathered face creased with concern. Let's start from the beginning. What happened here? Emily's legs felt like water as she stumbled to a booth and collapsed onto the cracked vinyl seat. Her mind was still processing. The gun, the phone call, those black SUVs appearing out of nowhere like something from a movie. 2 men, she began, her voice steadier than she felt.
Ski mask.
One had a gun, the other a crowbar. They took the register money and my tips. Martinez scribbled in his notebook. You said someone scared them off. I heard cars outside. Multiple vehicles. The robbers panicked and ran out the back. What kind of vehicles? SUVs. Black ones. 3 of them. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. They blocked the parking lot, but they didn't come inside. They just waited. Then when I heard your sirens, they left. Martinez exchanged a glance with his partner, a younger officer named Chun, who'd been examining the ransacked office. Something unspoken passed between them. Did you call 911?
Chun asked.
Emily's throat tightened.
Yes.
I tried to. I was hiding behind the counter, and I was shaking so badly. Dispatch only got your call 3 minutes ago, Martinez said carefully. From a payphone 2 blocks away. Anonymous tip about a robbery in progress. That wasn't you. The world tilted slightly.
No.
I called from my cell phone. Right after they came in. Can I see your call log? Emily's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone and opened it. The call history glared at her in green digital numbers. 961-555-0147. Outgoing call, 1:16 a.m., duration 2 minutes 34 seconds. Not 911. Martinez studied the number, his expression darkening. Did someone answer? Yes, the life formed before she could stop it. But it was a wrong number. I misdialed. Then I hid and hoped the robbers would just leave. She couldn't tell them the truth. Couldn't explain that a stranger with a voice like gravel and silk had dispatched a fleet of black SUVs to a roadside diner in under 10 minutes. That kind of response time didn't exist in the legitimate world. This number, Chin was typing it into his phone. His face went carefully blank. It's disconnected. Shows up as out of service. Maybe I remembered it wrong, Emily said quickly. Martinez wasn't buying it. She could see the suspicion in his eyes, the way he kept glancing at the parking lot as if those SUVs might return. Miss Carter, if you know something about who helped you tonight, it's important you tell us. For your own safety. I don't know anything. I'm just grateful it's over. The lie sat heavy on her tongue, but what else could she say? That she'd accidentally called someone powerful enough to mobilize armed men in the middle of the night? Someone who'd asked about exits and what she was wearing like he was planning a tactical operation. They spent another hour at the diner. Martinez took photos, dusted for prints, collected the few bills the robbers had dropped in their panic. Emily gave a statement, describing the masks, the heights, the tattoo she'd glimpsed on Red Mask's neck. She didn't mention the SUVs again. Neither did the officers, but she noticed how Martinez kept checking the street, his hand resting on his service weapon. We'll have a patrol car swing by every hour tonight, he finally said. Do you have someone who can stay with you? Emily thought of her empty studio apartment, the eviction notice, the profound loneliness that had become her normal. I'll be fine. Take tomorrow off. We'll need you to come to the station in the afternoon to look at some photos, see if we can ID these guys. She nodded, exhausted beyond words. Martinez hesitated at the door. Miss Carter? Those vehicles you saw, if they come back, if anyone approaches you, you call 911 immediately. The real 911. Understood. Understood. But as she watched the patrol car's taillights disappear down Route 7, Emily knew with absolute certainty that if those SUVs came back, calling the police would be pointless. She locked up the diner at 3:47 a.m., her hands still shaking as she turned the key. The parking lot was empty except for her 15-year-old Honda Civic, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The drive home took 12 minutes. She checked her rearview mirror constantly, searching for black SUVs, but saw only the occasional semi-truck and a lone sedan. Her apartment building was dark and silent. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs, her footsteps echoing in the stairwell. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Every creak of the old building made her jump. Inside her studio, she triple-checked the locks and wedged a chair under the doorknob, something she'd seen in movies but never thought she'd actually do. Then she sat on her bed, still in her uniform, and stared at her phone. The call was still there in her history. 961-555-0147. She should delete it. Forget this night ever happened. Go back to her small, struggling life and be grateful she was alive. Instead, she saved the number under a single letter. M. For mystery. For mistake. For the man who'd saved her life, without asking for anything in return.
Yet.
Emily finally fell asleep as dawn broke, her phone clutched in her hand, dreaming of deep voices and black cars that moved like sharks through the night. She didn't know that 3 miles away, in a penthouse overlooking the city, a man named Matteo was asking his lieutenant a simple question. Find out everything about the girl from the diner. I want to know who she is by breakfast. Emily woke to her phone ringing at 2:37 p.m., her body stiff from sleeping in her uniform. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was back at the diner, that the robbery was happening again. Then she saw the screen. Unknown number. Her heart stopped. She let it ring twice more, her thumb hovering over the answer button. It could be the police. It could be Danny calling about the diner. It could be. She answered. Hello. You called me last night. The voice was unmistakable, that same deep timbre that had commanded her to stay down, stay quiet. I don't like being involved in accidents. Emily's mouth went dry. She sat up slowly, her free hand gripping the edge of her mattress.
I'm sorry.
I was trying to dial 911. My hands were shaking and I hit the wrong number. I didn't mean to. No one calls me by mistake. There was something almost amused in his tone, like he was sharing a private joke with himself. But you're alive. That's good. Who are you? A pause. She could hear background noise, the clink of silverware, muted conversation, classical music. Somewhere upscale, refined. Someone who prefers to keep accidents from becoming complications. I didn't tell the police anything. About the cars, about you. I said I misdialed and got a disconnected number. I know what you told them, of course he did. The certainty in his voice made her skin prickle. Officer Martinez is a good cop. One of the few. But he asks too many questions. How do you? Emily stopped herself. Stupid question. This man clearly had resources that extended into places she couldn't imagine. What do you want from me? Want? He chuckled, a low sound that made her shiver despite the afternoon heat in her apartment. Nothing. You stumbled into my evening, Miss Carter. I'm simply making sure that stumble doesn't create any lasting consequences.
He knew her name.
Of course he knew her name. She wondered what else he knew. About her eviction notice, her overdrawn bank account, the parents who died in a car crash when she was 19, leaving her completely alone in the world. I won't tell anyone, she said quietly. I promise. Promises are cheap. But fear? Another pause. Fear is honest. You're afraid of me right now, aren't you? Emily wanted to lie, but something told her this man would know. Yes. Good. Fear keeps people alive. His voice softened slightly, almost thoughtful. You didn't beg for money last night. You begged for life. That's rare. Most people in your position would have asked about the register, worried about getting fired, thought about consequences. You just wanted to survive. I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. I'm not trying to tell you anything. I'm simply explaining why I answered a wrong number at 1 in the morning. She heard him take a drink of something, ice cubes clinking against glass. You have a quality, Miss Carter. Authenticity. You don't perform your fear, you feel it. You don't calculate survival, you beg for it. That's refreshing. Emily's head was spinning. So, what happens now? Now? Now you go back to your life. You work at Danny's diner, you worry about your rent, you serve coffee to truck drivers who tip in quarters. Nothing changes, but you'll be watching. I'm always watching. The amusement in his voice was clearer now. Consider it a gift. You have the private number of someone who can make problems disappear. Most people would kill for that kind of insurance policy. I don't want it, Emily said, surprising herself with her own firmness. I don't want anything to do with whatever you are. For the first time, he sounded genuinely surprised.
No. No.
I just want my quiet, boring life. I want to pay my bills and not worry about men in masks or black SUVs or, her voice cracked, or people who make other people disappear. Silence stretched between them. Emily held her breath, wondering if she'd just made a fatal mistake. You didn't refuse men like this. Men who commanded fleets of vehicles and knew cop names and could track down a nobody waitress in less than a day. Then he laughed. Really laughed. It was warm and genuine and completely unexpected. All right, Miss Carter. Your quiet, boring life it is. The ice clinked again. But keep the number. Just in case your life decides to become interesting again. Wait, but the line was already dead. Emily stared at her phone, her heart still racing. Unknown number stared back at her from the screen. She should delete it, block it, throw her phone in the river, and get a new one with a new number. Instead, she saved it, right below the other mysterious contact. M. This one she labeled Voice. She spent the rest of the afternoon at the police station, looking through mugshot after mugshot, but none of them matched the glimpse she'd caught of Red Mask's face. Martinez seemed frustrated, but not surprised. They probably weren't local, he said. We'll keep the case open, but without more to go on. Emily just nodded, exhausted and ready to go home. As she walked her car, she noticed a black sedan parked across the street. Tinted windows. Engine idling. Her breath caught. The window rolled down slowly. A man in a dark suit nodded at her once. Acknowledgement, not threat. Then the window rolled back up and the sedan pulled away. Watching. He'd meant it literally. Emily drove home wondering if she'd ever truly feel alone again. 3 days passed. 3 days of jumping at every shadow, checking her rearview mirror obsessively, and expecting another call that never came. Emily tried to return to normal. She picked up her shifts at Danny's, though her hands still trembled when she opened the register. Danny himself had offered her a few days off, but she couldn't afford to miss work. Not with eviction notice deadline looming. Friday morning, she woke to find a manila envelope wedged under her apartment door. Her name was written on the front in elegant script, Miss Emily Carter. No return address.
No postie.
Hand-delivered. Emily's stomach dropped. She stared at it for a full minute before her hands moved, before she picked it up with shaking fingers. It was thick, heavy. She carried it to her kitchenette table and sat down, her coffee growing cold as she worked up the courage to open it. Inside were crisp $100 bills. She counted them twice, unable to believe what she was seeing.
$1,800.
The exact amount of her overdue rent, late fees included. A small card was tucked between the bills, the same elegant handwriting. Consider the favor returned. You're even now.
No signature.
No name. But Emily knew exactly who it was from. No, she whispered to her empty apartment.
No, no, no.
She shoved the money back into the envelope like it was contaminated. This was worse than the phone call. This was real, physical, undeniable proof that she was now connected to someone dangerous. Someone who knew where she lived, what she owed, how desperate her situation was. Someone who'd just paid her debt without asking. Emily grabbed her jacket and was out the door in seconds, the envelope clutched in her hand. She'd go to the police. She'd tell them everything, the call, the SUVs, the money. They'd protect her. They'd have to. But as she burst onto the street, she saw it. The black sedan from before, parked 3 spaces down. Different car, maybe, but the same tinted windows. The same message. We're watching. Emily's resolve crumbled. If she went to the police with $1,800 in cash and a story about a mysterious benefactor, what would they do? Open an investigation? Put her in witness protection for a crime that hadn't even happened? And if this man, Voice, whoever he was, didn't want to be investigated, what would he do to make the problem go away? She thought of Officer Martinez's warning. Those vehicles you saw, if they come back, if anyone approaches you, you call 911 immediately. But they hadn't approached her. They'd helped her. Twice now. Emily walked back inside, her decision made. She'd keep the money. Pay her rent. Stay quiet. Maybe that would be the end of it. She spent the weekend in a haze of anxiety, expecting consequences that never materialized. By Monday, she'd almost convinced herself that the card was telling the truth. They were even now. It was over. Monday afternoon, she gave her landlord the cash. Mrs. Chun counted it slowly, her expression suspicious. Where'd you get this kind of money? Settlement from the robbery. Emily lied smoothly. Insurance thing. Mrs. Chen's eyes narrowed, but she pocketed the bills. Rent's due 1st of next month. On time, Emily. I mean it. Yes, ma'am. Walking back to her apartment, Emily felt lighter than she had in months.
No eviction.
No sleeping in her car.
No.
Her phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. Smart girl. Now forget you ever dialed wrong. Emily deleted the message immediately, her hands shaking again. She blocked the number for good measure, then changed her mind and unblocked it. What if blocking it made him angry? What if? She forced herself to breathe. It was over. He'd said so. You're even now. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the building made her jump. At 3 a.m., she finally admitted defeat and started packing. Not everything. She couldn't afford movers, but enough. Clothes, photos, important documents. She'd give Danny her notice, find a job in another city. Maybe Boston. Maybe Portland. Somewhere far from here, far from mysterious phone calls and black sedans. Tuesday morning, she typed up her resignation letter during her break. Danny would understand. After the robbery, he'd probably expect it. She left work at 6 p.m., her letter of resignation in her purse, her mind made up. The bus to the next town overleft at 8. She'd stay at a motel, start job hunting in the morning. Begin again somewhere nobody knew her name. The bus stop was 2 blocks from her apartment. Emily walked quickly, her head down, counting the streetlights. Almost there. Almost free. That's when she noticed the black sedan again. Not parked this time. Following slowly, matching her pace. Her heart hammered. She walked faster. The sedan kept pace. At the bus stop, Emily sat on the bench, her resignation letter crumpling in her fist. The sedan parked across the street, engine idling. A message. We know what you're planning. The bus arrived at 8:03. Emily's Zut, Kraft Hepe. The sedan's window rolled down. The same man in the dark suit from before, older with silver at his temples, gestured to her. One finger.
Come here.
Emily's legs moved before her brain could object. She crossed the street, every instinct screaming at her to run. The man handed her a business card through the window. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. Giordano's. 1247 Morrison Street. Interview tomorrow, 10 a.m. You wanted a new life, he said, his voice gravelly but not unkind. Boss is giving you one. Don't be late. The window rolled up. The sedan drove away. Emily stood on the empty street, watching her bus disappear into the night, the business card burning in her hand like a brand. She wasn't even anymore. She was owned. Matteo Rizzo stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse, a glass of Macallan 25 in his hand, watching the city lights blur into a sea of gold and white. Behind him, his lieutenant, Vincent Calabrese, shifted uncomfortably. You paid her rent, Vincent said, not quite making it a question. I did. And now you're offering her a job at Giordano's. I am. Vincent was silent for a moment, choosing his words carefully. He'd known Matteo for 15 years, since they were both young and hungry and building an empire from nothing. He'd seen his boss order executions with less thought than he gave to his morning espresso. But this was different. Boss, with all due respect, why? Matteo took a slow sip of his whiskey, savoring the burn. You listened to the recording of the call. What did you hear? A scared waitress who misdialed. What else? Vincent frowned, thinking back. They'd pulled the audio from Matteo's phone, analyzed it, had it cleaned up by their tech guy.
She was quiet. Didn't scream.
Gave you information efficiently, location, number of suspects, weapons. She didn't beg for money, Matteo said softly. She didn't ask me to call the police. She didn't waste time apologizing for the wrong number. He turned from the window, his dark eyes reflecting the city lights. She begged for life.
Pure, simple survival.
When's the last time you heard someone be that honest? It's still just a waitress, boss. She's nobody. Nobody. Matteo's smile was cold. Nobody is exactly what makes her interesting. Look at this.
He gestured to the tablet on his desk.
Vincent picked it up, scrolling through the background report their investigator had compiled. Emily Carter, 26. Parents dead.
No siblings.
No criminal record. Not even a parking ticket. She'd been working at Danny's diner for 4 years. Never missed a shift. Never caused problems. She's clean, Vincent observed. Completely. No debt except rent, which she couldn't pay because some junkie took her tips.
No boyfriend.
No social media footprint worth mentioning. No enemies. Matteo set down his glass. She's invisible. Do you know how rare that is? So she's boring. She's trustworthy. Matteo's voice hardened. Everyone in our world wants something: power, money, respect, revenge. They scheme, they angle, they play games. But her? She just wants to survive. To pay her rent. To live quietly. He paused. That kind of person doesn't betray you because they don't have the ambition to. Vincent still looked skeptical. The police questioned her. She could have told them everything. But she didn't. I had Marco monitor the station. She said she misdialed, got a disconnected number, and the robbers ran when they heard sirens. Protected me without even knowing who I was. Matteo picked up his glass again, swirling the amber liquid. Loyalty before it's bought. That's priceless. Or she's just terrified. Fear and loyalty often look the same. The difference is what happens when the fear fades. Matteo walked to his desk, picking up a silver fountain pen, a gift from his sister, years ago. The only thing he'd kept from his old life. She tried to leave town tonight. Had a bus ticket and everything. And you stopped her. I redirected her. There's a difference. Matteo's jaw tightened. She calls me by accident. I save her life. She stays quiet. I pay her debt. She tries to run. I offer her a future. Each action earns a response. That's how trust is built. Vincent sat down, recognizing the philosophical mood his boss occasionally fell into. Usually after too much whiskey and too little sleep. You said she reminded you of someone. The statement hung in the air like smoke. Matteo's expression went carefully blank, the way it always did when Vincent got too close to the truth. My sister was 24 when she died, Matteo said finally. Working late at a convenience store, saving up for law school. 2 kids with guns came in demanding money. She gave them everything, the register, her purse, even her phone. They shot her anyway. Vincent had heard the story before, but never from Matteo's own mouth. It was legend in their circles. The reason Matteo Rizzo had abandoned his law degree and built a criminal empire instead. Control the chaos, or be consumed by it. The girl isn't Sophia, Vincent said gently. I know that. Matteo's voice was sharp. But when she called me, when she whispered, please help me, like the world was ending, he stopped himself, jaw clenching. Everyone calls the police. Normal people anyway. They call 911 and hope someone comes in time.
But she called me.
Maybe it was fate's way of fixing something. Fixing what? Me. Matteo drained his glass. I've been numb for 8 years, Vincent. I built all this. He gestured at the penthouse, at the city beyond, at the empire he controlled from the shadows. Because I couldn't save one girl from 2 scared kids with guns. But last week, I got a chance to rewrite that night. Different girl. Different robbery. Same fear in her voice. And you saved her. I did. Matteo's smile was bitter. For the first time in 8 years, I did something that wasn't about control or power or revenge. I just helped someone. It felt human. Dangerous. Matteo set down his glass with a sharp click. Because now I want to do it again. Vincent stood, understanding settling over him like a weight. That's why the job offer. She needs protection. Purpose. A place in a world that's forgotten she exists. Matteo turned back to the window. Giordano's is legitimate, fully licensed, clean books, no family business conducted on premises. She'll be safe there. Watched but safe. And if she refuses, she won't. How do you know? Matteo's reflection in the glass smiled, cold and certain. Because she has nowhere else to go. I made sure of that. Emily stood outside Giordano's at 9:47 a.m., her palms sweating despite the cool October air. The restaurant occupied a converted brownstone in the upscale Morrison district, its brass nameplate gleaming in the morning sun. Cream awnings, pristine windows, a doorman in a charcoal suit who nodded at her as she approached. This wasn't a restaurant. This was a statement. "Miss Carter?" The doorman opened the door before she could touch the handle. "They're expecting you." Of course they were. Inside, Giordano's was elegant in a way that made Emily acutely aware of her Target blazer and scuffed flats. White tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, art that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. The lunch crowd wouldn't arrive for hours, but staff moved through the space with choreographed precision, polishing glassware, arranging flowers, preparing for a service that would serve the city's elite. A woman in her 50s approached, her silver hair styled in a perfect chignon. "Emily Carter?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm Margaret Russo, general manager. Please follow me." They walked through the dining room to a private office in the back. Margaret's heels clicked against marble floors that reflected the chandelier light like water. She gestured to a chair upholstered in burgundy leather. "Your interview," Margaret said, settling behind an antique desk, "is merely a formality. Mr. Rizzo has already approved your hiring." The name hit Emily like a fist. "Mr. Rizzo, the owner. He takes a personal interest in all our staff." Margaret's smile was professional, revealing nothing. "You'll be working dinner service, Wednesday through Sunday. The position pays $28 an hour plus pooled tips, which typically add another $300 to $400 per week. Health insurance after 90 days. 2 weeks paid vacation after 1 year." Emily's mind reeled. She currently made $9 an hour plus individual tips that rarely exceeded $50 a night. This was more than triple her income. "I don't understand," she said slowly. "I've never worked fine dining. I don't have experience with." "You have 4 years of service experience and excellent references from your current employer." Mr. Rizzo believes in potential over pedigree. Margaret slid a folder across the desk. "Your offer letter and employment contract. I'll need your decision today." Emily opened the folder with trembling hands. The contract was dense with legal language, but certain phrases jumped out. At-will employment, non-disclosure agreement, binding arbitration, and at the bottom, a signature line. "This is too much," Emily whispered. "I can't. Why would he do this?" Margaret's professional mask slipped slightly, something almost sympathetic crossing her face. "Mr. Rizzo rewards loyalty. You helped him once, even if you didn't know it. He's returning the favor." "I dialed a wrong number." "Did you?" Margaret leaned back in her chair. "Some people believe there are no accidents, that everything happens for a reason. Mr. Rizzo is one of those people." Emily's chest tightened. "Is he here? Can I talk to him?" "He often dines here for lunch. You may see him." Margaret's tone made it clear the conversation about Matteo was over. "Do you have any questions about the position itself?" 1,000 questions swirled in Emily's mind, none of them about scheduling or dress codes. But Margaret's expression told her those were the only questions that would receive answers. "When would I start?" "Tonight, if you're available. We'll pair you with Sophia for training. She's been with us for 3 years. She'll show you everything you need to know." Emily stared at the contract. $28 an hour. Health insurance. A way out of the poverty that had defined her life since her parents died. All she had to do was sign her name and accept help from a man who commanded black SUVs and knew things he should know. A man whose voice still echoed in her dreams. "Stay down. I'll take care of it." "If I say no?" Emily asked quietly. Margaret's expression didn't change. "Then you say no. Mr. Rizzo doesn't force anyone to work for him. You're free to return to Danny's diner, and we'll wish you well." But Emily heard what wasn't said. "He'll be disappointed. And disappointment has consequences." She thought of her studio apartment, her eviction notice that had been paid by money she hadn't earned, her bus ticket that she'd never used. The black sedan that had followed her, stopped her, redirected her life with a business card and a single sentence. She wasn't free. Maybe she'd never been free. Not since she'd dialed 961 instead of 911. Emily picked up the pen. "Do I need to give Danny 2 weeks' notice?" "We'll handle that." Mr. Rizzo spoke with Danny this morning. He understands you're pursuing a better opportunity.
Of course he did.
Matteo Rizzo was always 3 steps ahead, arranging her life like pieces on a chessboard. Emily signed her name, the pen scratching against expensive paper. The sound felt final, irreversible. Margaret smiled, sliding the contract back into the folder. Welcome to Giordano's, Miss Carter. Sophia will meet you in the staff room at 4 p.m. for your orientation. Wear all black. We'll provide your uniform apron. Emily left the office in a daze, walking back through the beautiful dining room that was now her workplace. The doorman held the door, his expression neutral. On the street, she breathed in the cool air and tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice. That accepting help wasn't the same as accepting ownership. That a job was just a job, even when offered by a man whose last name she'd just learned. A sleek black car was parked across the street. Different from the sedan, longer, more expensive. The back window was tinted, but as Emily watched, it rolled down just an inch. She couldn't see inside, but she felt eyes on her. Watching. Waiting. The window rolled back up. The car didn't move. You wanted a new life. Boss is giving you one. Emily turned and walked toward the bus stop, her hand shaking.
She'd signed the contract.
She'd taken the job. Now she just had to survive whatever came next. 3 weeks into her new life, Emily was beginning to understand the world beneath the world. Giordano's operated like any upscale restaurant during dinner service, polished, professional, catering to lawyers and hedge fund managers who ordered the Chilean sea bass and vintage Barolos. But after midnight, when the last legitimate customer had left, a different clientele arrived through the back entrance. Men in expensive suits who spoke in code. Envelopes that changed hands under tables. Conversations that stopped the moment Emily approached with water refills. Sophia, her trainer, was 32 with kind eyes and steady hands. On Emily's 4th night, after a particularly tense service where 3 men had occupied table 12 for 4 hours without ordering food, Emily finally asked, "What are we really serving here?" Sophia paused mid-polish on a wine glass. "The best Italian cuisine in the city." "That's not what I mean." "I know what you mean," Sophia set down the glass carefully. "And the answer is, we serve food. What happens at the tables? Not our business. We're waitresses, Emily. We smile, we take orders, we don't ask questions. But those men have private meetings. That's all." Sophia's voice dropped. "Listen to me carefully. Mr. Rizzo owns 5 restaurants in the city. Giordano's is special because nothing illegal happens here. Ever. It's neutral ground. A place where people can talk without worrying about wires or raids or violence. You understand?" Emily nodded slowly. "Switzerland."
Exactly.
"Which means we're protected. No one would dare cause trouble here because it would ruin the arrangement for everyone." Sophia touched Emily's arm. "You're safe here. Safer than you were at Danny's. Just remember, we see nothing, hear nothing, remember nothing." But Emily did see, did hear, did remember. She learned to recognize the regulars. Carlo Benedetti, who always sat at table 7 and ordered the osso buco. Judge Catherine Brennan, who dined alone on Thursdays and left precisely at 10 p.m. The young men with Brooklyn accents who deferred to older men with calculating eyes. And every Friday night, Matteo Rizzo came to his restaurant. Emily had managed to avoid him for 2 weeks through careful schedule monitoring and strategic bathroom breaks. But on her 15th night, Margaret assigned her to table 1, a corner booth with clear sight lines to the entire dining room. Matteo's table. He arrived at 9:30 p.m., flanked by Vincent Calabrese and another man Emily didn't recognize. Matteo wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car, his dark hair silver-threaded at the temples. He moved with the casual authority of someone who'd never had to raise his voice to be obeyed. Emily approached with menus, her hands remarkably steady despite her hammering heart. "Good evening, gentlemen. Can I start you with something to drink?" Matteo looked up, and their eyes met for the first time. He was younger than she'd imagined, early 40s, maybe. Sharp features, a scar through his left eyebrow that gave him a permanent look of skepticism. But it was his eyes that caught her. Dark brown, almost black, and startlingly intelligent. "You must be Emily." His voice was exactly as she remembered, whiskey and gravel. "Margaret says you're doing well." "Thank you, sir." "Matteo. We don't stand on ceremony here." He smiled slightly. "The Brunello di Montalcino. Vincent will have bourbon, neat, and Marcus drinks vodka tonic." He paused. "Bring yourself a glass of wine. You look like you could use it." "I'm working. I can't. I'm the owner." "I say you can." It wasn't a request. Emily nodded and fled to the bar, her composure cracking. When she returned with the drinks and a glass of Pinot Grigio she had no intention of touching, Matteo gestured to the empty space in the booth beside him.
"Seat."
5 minutes.
"I want to talk to you."
Vincent and Marcus exchanged glances, but said nothing. Emily slid into the booth, the leather cool against her legs, acutely aware of Matteo's proximity. He smelled like expensive cologne and old books. "Why did you take the job?" Matteo asked, swirling his wine. "Because I needed the money."
"Honest."
"Good." He took a sip. "Are you afraid of me?" Emily thought about lying, but something in his eyes told her he'd know. Yes. Still, even after 3 weeks of safe, well-paid work? Especially after Emily met his gaze. "Because I don't understand what you want from me. People don't help strangers. Not like this. Not without expecting something." Matteo studied her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "You're right. They don't. So let me explain something." He set down his glass. 8 years ago, my sister was murdered during a robbery. She begged for her life, and they killed her anyway. When you called me, when you whispered, "Please help me," in that exact same terror, he stopped, jaw tightening. I got to rewrite that night. I got to save someone. Emily's throat constricted. "I'm not your sister. I know that. But for the first time in 8 years, I remembered what I wanted to be before I became this." He gestured at himself, at the restaurant, at the empire he controlled. "Before I was the monster, I wanted to be the man who protected people. You reminded me. So I'm what? Your redemption project. You're someone who deserves better than Danny's diner." His voice softened. "Everyone calls the police, Emily. Normal people call 911 and hope someone arrives in time.
"But you called me."
Maybe fate wanted to fix something in me, too." Vincent cleared his throat. "Boss, the Castellano meeting." "Can wait." Matteo's eyes never left Emily's face. "Do you like it here?" "It's the best job I've ever had." "Then keep it. Work hard, stay quiet, and build a life. That's all I want from you. To succeed." He paused. "Is that so hard to believe?" Emily looked at this man who'd saved her life, paid her rent, and given her a future. Who spoke of his dead sister with barely controlled grief. Who commanded respect with a glance, but asked her to sit with genuine curiosity. "Yes," she whispered. "Because people like me don't get saved. We just survive until we don't." Matteo's expression shifted, something almost sad crossing his features. "Not anymore. Now get back to work before Margaret thinks I'm keeping you." Emily stood, her legs unsteady. As she walked away, she heard Vincent say quietly, "You're getting attached, boss." And Matteo's response, "Maybe that's not a bad thing." 6 weeks into her new life, Emily had almost convinced herself she was safe. The routine had become comfortable. Work Wednesday through Sunday, earn more money than she'd ever dreamed of, come home to an apartment she could actually afford. She'd even started saving, a small emergency fund that grew with each paycheck. Matteo came to the restaurant every Friday, always sat at table 1, always asked her how she was doing. Their conversations remained brief, professional, but Emily found herself looking forward to them. He was different from what she'd expected, thoughtful, curious about her opinions on books and music, never condescending. "You're not what I thought a mob boss would be like," she'd said once, without thinking. His laugh had been genuine. "I prefer businessman with complicated connections." Mob boss sounds so outdated. It was the closest either of them had come to acknowledging what he really was. November arrived with early darkness and bitter cold. Emily's shift ended at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, later than usual because they'd hosted a private event. Sophia had already left, and Margaret was in the office doing paperwork. "You need a ride?" Margaret called out as Emily pulled on her coat. "No, thank you. The bus runs until midnight. Be careful. It's not a good neighborhood between here and the stop." Emily had walked the route dozens of times without incident. Morrison Street was well lit, populated even late at night with people leaving restaurants and bars. She wasn't worried.
She should have been.
The attack came 3 blocks from Giordano's, in the gap between streetlights where the upscale district bled into industrial warehouses. Emily was checking her phone, mentally calculating her grocery budget, when a hand grabbed her arm and yanked her into an alley. She tried to scream, but another hand clamped over her mouth. 2 men, no masks this time, faces bare and hostile. The one holding her was young, maybe 25, with a spider tattoo crawling up his neck. The other was older, his nose crooked from being broken multiple times. "You're the waitress," Spider Tattoo said, his breath hot against her ear. "Rizzo's girl." Terror flooded Emily's system. "I don't know what you're." "Don't lie." Broken Nose pulled out a phone, snapping her picture. "He's been protecting you. Watching you. That makes you valuable."
"I'm nobody," Emily gasped.
"I just work at his restaurant." "I'm not." "You sit at his table. You talk to him every Friday." Spider Tattoo's grip tightened painfully. "That's more access than most people in his organization get. So either you're special or you know things." "I don't know anything." Broken Nose backhanded her across the face. Pain exploded through her cheek, stars bursting in her vision. "Message to Rizzo. Stay out of the waterfront deal. Tell him Castellano doesn't forget disrespect." I don't." Blood filled Emily's mouth where she'd bitten her tongue. "You'll tell him." Spider Tattoo shoved her against the brick wall, her head cracking against the rough surface. "Because if he doesn't back off, next time we won't just send a message. We'll send pieces." They released her suddenly. Emily collapsed to the filthy ground, her vision swimming. She heard footsteps running, then voices, different voices, familiar cadences. "Get the medic.
Now."
Boss is going to lose his mind. She's bleeding." Hands, gentle this time, helping her sit up. Emily blinked, trying to focus. Vincent Calabrese crouched in front of her, his face grim. Behind him, 3 other men in dark suits, guns visible in shoulder holsters. "Emily, can you hear me?" She nodded, immediately regretted it as pain lanced through her skull. "How many were there?"
2.
They said I should tell Matteo something. About Waterfront and Castellano." Vincent's jaw clenched. "Did they hurt you anywhere else? Besides your face?" Emily took inventory. Her head throbbed, her cheek was on fire, her arm would definitely bruise. But nothing felt broken.
"No."
They wanted to scare me." They succeeded. Vincent pulled out his phone. "Boss, we have a situation." The next 20 minutes blurred together. A man Emily had never met examined her injuries with professional efficiency. Former combat medic, she gathered from the conversation. Her head wound wasn't serious, but she'd have a spectacular bruise. He gave her ice and painkillers and instructions to watch for concussion symptoms. Then Matteo arrived. Emily had never seen him like this. His usual controlled demeanor had vanished, replaced by cold, focused rage that made the temperature in the alley seem to drop. He looked at her injuries, his hands clenching into fists, and Emily suddenly understood why people feared him. "Who?" One word, spoken quietly, but everyone in the alley tensed. "Castellano's crew," Vincent said. "Message about the waterfront." They touched her. Matteo's voice was deadly calm. "In my territory." After I made it clear she was under protection. "Boss, we can." "No," Matteo cut him off. "This is a declaration of war. They want the waterfront? I'll burn it to the ground before I let them have it." He looked at Vincent. "Take her to the house. Full security detail. No one in or out without my approval." "Wait." Emily struggled to stand, Vincent studying her. "I just want to go home." Matteo finally looked at her, and something in his expression softened slightly. Your home isn't safe anymore. They know where you live. They know your routine. They'll come back. He stepped closer, his voice dropping.
I'm sorry, Emily.
I thought keeping you at the restaurant would be enough. I underestimated how stupid Castellano could be. This isn't your fault. It is. His eyes were dark with something Emily couldn't name. Guilt, anger, determination. I brought you into this world. Now I have to keep you alive in it. A black SUV pulled up at the alley entrance. Vincent guided Emily toward it, but she looked back at Matteo, who stood in the alley like an avenging angel, his phone already out, making calls that would reshape the city's underworld. What are you going to do? She asked. Matteo's smile was cold and sharp as a knife. Remind everyone why they should be afraid of me. Matteo's mansion sat on 3 acres in the hills overlooking the city, surrounded by walls topped with security cameras and guards who materialized from shadows. Emily was escorted through iron gates into a world of marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and art that belonged in museums. She was given a guest suite larger than her entire apartment, bedroom, sitting room, private bathroom with a soaking tub. A woman named Rosa brought fresh clothes in her size, food she was too nauseous to eat, and medication for the pain. Mr. Rizzo says you're to rest, Rosa told her gently. Everything you need is here. Press the button if you want anything. Emily sat on the edge of the enormous bed, still wearing her work clothes stained with alley dirt and blood, and tried to process what had happened. 2 hours ago, she'd been a waitress walking home. Now she was a prisoner, however gilded the cage, in a mob boss's mansion while he waged war on her behalf. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt numb. Around 3 a.m., Emily heard shouting from somewhere in the house. Male voices, angry and escalating. She crept to her door and opened it slightly. Can't start a war over a waitress. A voice she recognized as Vincent's. Boss, think about this. Castellano has connections with the Bratva and the Triads. If we move against him... He attacked someone under my protection. Matteo's voice was ice. In my territory. If I let that slide, every 2-bit crew in the city will think I've gone soft. Maybe you have. The words were followed by immediate silence. Vincent had crossed a line. Say that again. Matteo's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. The Emily situation. Boss, you're not thinking clearly. She's a civilian. A nobody we pulled off the street because you had a moment of nostalgia about Sophia. Now you're ready to risk everything? Our waterfront operations, our peace with Castellano, our entire northern territory, for what? Emily pressed closer to the door, her heart racing. For principle, Matteo said. If we don't protect our own, what are we? She's not our own. She's worked for you for 6 weeks. She doesn't know the business, doesn't understand what you do, and frankly, boss, she's a liability. Castellano proved that tonight. Then what do you suggest? I hand her over? Let them know that threats work? I suggest you make a deal. Give Castellano the waterfront, keep Emily out of it, and everyone goes home happy. The silence stretched so long Emily thought they'd moved away. Then Matteo spoke, and his voice carried a weight that made her shiver. Get out, boss. Get out before I forget we're friends. Footsteps, a door slamming, then quiet. Emily eased her door closed and retreated to the bed, her mind spinning. Vincent was right, she was nobody. Matteo was about to start a war that could destroy everything he'd built. And for what? Because he felt guilty about his sister? Because Emily had accidentally dialed his number. She had to stop this. At 5 a.m., as dawn lightened the sky, Emily left her room and navigated the mansion's corridors until she found Matteo's office. The door was open. He sat behind a massive desk, still in his suit from earlier, staring at a map of the city marked with colored pins and territories. You should be resting, he said without looking up. I heard you, and Vincent. Emily stepped inside. He's right. Now Matteo looked at her, his expression unreadable. Is he? You can't start a war over me. I'm not worth it. That's not for you to decide. Emily moved closer, her frustration overriding her fear. Yes, it is. This is my life you're playing with. I didn't ask to be protected. I didn't ask to be valuable. I just wanted to serve food and go home safely. And you were attacked for doing exactly that. Matteo stood, walking around the desk. Do you understand what happens if I let this go? If I show weakness? Tomorrow it's not just you. It's everyone who works for me. Every waitress, every driver, every person who depends on my protection. They'll all become targets. So make a deal. Give him whatever he wants. I'm not negotiating with people who hurt you. The words came out harder than Matteo seemed to intend. He paused, then continued more softly. You don't understand this world, Emily. Respect is currency. The moment you show you can be bought or intimidated, you're finished. Then let me go. I'll leave the city, change my name, disappear. Problem solved. They already have your picture. Your information. Running makes you look guilty, makes me look weak. Matteo rubbed his face, exhaustion showing for the first time. There's no clean exit from this. Emily sat down in one of the leather chairs facing his desk, suddenly bone-tired. I never wanted any of this. I just dialed wrong. I know. Matteo sat across from her, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. And I'm sorry. You got caught in something that has nothing to do with you. But we're here now, and I have to deal with reality, not what I wish had happened. Will you kill them? The men who attacked me? The question hung between them. Matteo held her gaze. Do you want me to? No, the answer came instantly. I don't want anyone dead because of me. Please, Matteo. There has to be another way. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then something in his expression shifted. Surprise, maybe, or realization. You're the first person in 8 years to tell me no, he said quietly. Everyone else just waits for orders. But you, he laughed, a bitter sound. You actually care about the consequences. Of course I do. People might die. People die every day in this city. Usually, I don't lose sleep over it. He stood, walking to the window. But you're right. Maybe I am tired of being feared. Maybe I'm tired of every problem being solved with violence. Then don't. Find another way. Matteo turned back to her, and Emily saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before: uncertainty. The great Matteo Rizzo, who commanded empires and inspired terror, was actually considering her plea. If I show mercy, he said slowly, it has to come from a position of strength, not weakness. What does that mean? His smile was sharp. It means I'll spare their lives. But Castellano will pay a different price for touching you. Emily stayed at the mansion for 3 days. On the 4th morning, Matteo summoned her to his study, a wood-paneled room lined with law books gathering dust, remnants of a life abandoned. He stood by the window, a file folder in his hands. When he turned, Emily saw exhaustion etched into his features. Whatever he'd done to handle Castellano had taken its toll. Is it over? She asked. Castellano lost his waterfront operations. I made sure the police found enough evidence to freeze his assets and indict his top lieutenants. Clean, legal, devastating. Matteo set the folder on his desk. He can't retaliate without risking federal attention. The men who attacked you have been relocated, out of state, with clear instructions never to return. You didn't kill them. I didn't kill them. He gestured to a chair.
Seat.
There's something I need to tell you. Emily sat, her stomach knotting with anxiety. Matteo remained standing, his fingers drumming against the desk, the first nervous gesture she'd ever seen from him. When you called me that night, it wasn't random, he began. The number you dialed, 961-555-0147. That was my sister's phone number. Emily's breath caught. What? Sophia died 8 years ago. I kept her number active, kept paying the bill because he trailed off, jaw clenching. Because disconnecting it felt like killing her twice. It's listed under a shell company now, untraceable. No one should have been able to reach it. But you did. I don't understand. Matteo finally sat, his movements heavy with old grief. Sophia was 24. Brilliant.
Kind.
She wanted to be a civil rights lawyer, Wanted to help people the system failed. His smile was bitter. I was already in law school, top of my class. We were going to change the world together, the Rizzo siblings, fighting for justice. Emily remained silent, sensing this was a story rarely told. She worked nights at a convenience store to pay her tuition. I told her it was dangerous. I offered to help with money, but she was stubborn. Wanted to do it herself. Matteo's hands clenched. February 14th, Valentine's Day. 2 kids, 19 and 20, came in with guns. They wanted $200. Sophia gave them everything. The register, her purse, even her necklace. They shot her anyway. 3 times. Matteo. The police caught them within an hour. They confessed, cried, said they didn't mean to. One of them said the gun just went off, his voice dripped with contempt. They got manslaughter. 15 years. Eligible for parole in 7. The judge called it a tragic accident. Emily's throat tightened. I'm so sorry. I dropped out of law school the next day. The system I'd believed in had just told me my sister's life was worth 7 years. Maybe less. With good behavior, Matteo stood, pacing now. I spent the next year learning a different kind of law, the kind that actually controlled the city. I built an organization not for money or power, but for control. Because if I controlled the chaos, I could prevent another Sophia. But you became a monster. I know. He stopped at a bookshelf, pulling out a leather photo album. He opened it, showing Emily pictures of a young woman with Matteo's dark eyes and a brilliant smile. I told myself every decision was to protect people like her. Every territory I claimed, every rival I eliminated, every cop I bought, it was all to create order. Emily studied the photos, Sophia at graduation, Sophia with friends, Sophia and Matteo laughing over coffee. She wouldn't have wanted this.
No.
She would have hated what I became. Matteo closed the album gently. But I was numb by then. Had been for years. I'd built this empire on her grave and couldn't remember why I'd started. The violence became routine. The fear I inspired became currency. I was effective, powerful, untouchable. He looked at Emily. And completely empty. Until I called. Until you called Sophia's number at 1:16 a.m., terrified of men with guns, begging for help. Matteo's voice roughened. It was like she reached out from wherever she is and said, "Here. Try again. Do it right this time." Emily stood, understanding washing over her. That's why you saved me. Not just because I reminded you of her. Because I literally called her phone. I answered, and for the first time in 8 years, I wasn't the monster. I was just a man who could help someone scared and desperate. He met her eyes. You reminded me what I wanted to protect before I became the thing that needed to be protected against. I'm not her, Matteo. I know. You're you, stubborn, principled, brave enough to tell me not to kill people who attacked you. His smile was sad. Sophia would have liked you. Would have said you're too good for someone like me. She'd be right. She usually was. Matteo moved to his desk, picking up the folder. This is your new identity. Birth certificate, social security card, driver's license. Emily Mitchell from Portland, Oregon. Clean history, credit established, bank account with enough money to start over wherever you want. Emily stared at the folder. What? The police are investigating Castellano. They'll eventually connect you to the attack, question you, possibly use you to build their case. I can't protect you from federal investigators, Emily. The best protection I can offer is anonymity. He held out the folder.
Take it.
Disappear. Live the quiet life you wanted. And you. I'll stay here. Run my empire. Try to remember that mercy is strength, not weakness. His eyes held something Emily had never seen before, resignation. People like me don't get new lives. We buy them for others. Emily took the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a whole new existence, purchased with money earned from everything she despised. But it was also freedom. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me. Just live well. Matteo walked to the door. Vincent will drive you wherever you want to go. The apartment by the coast is already leased under your new name. 6 months paid. He was at the threshold when Emily called out, "Matteo?" He paused, not turning. "Your sister, she didn't die for nothing. You saved me. Maybe that's enough." His shoulders tensed. Then he walked away without responding, leaving Emily alone with her new life and the weight of understanding why it had been given to her. The apartment was everything Matteo had promised, a modest one-bedroom in a coastal town called Fairhaven, 200 miles north. White walls, ocean views, the sound of seagulls instead of sirens. Emily Mitchell's lease was paid through April, utilities included. Emily spent the first week in a daze, walking the beach, buying groceries under her new name, applying to local restaurants. She got hired at a cafe called the Lighthouse within days. $12 an hour, morning shifts, no questions asked about her Portland references that Matteo's people had fabricated. It should have been perfect. It should have been the fresh start she'd always wanted. Instead, she found herself thinking about Matteo, wondering if he was okay. If Vincent had forgiven him for choosing mercy. If the empire he'd built was crumbling because he'd shown weakness by letting her go. 3 weeks after she'd left, Emily's new phone rang. Unknown number. Her heart stuttered. "Hello. Miss Carter," Vincent's voice. "There's a situation." Emily sat down heavily on her second-hand couch. What happened? Federal investigation into Castellano went wider than expected. They're looking at everyone he had contact with in the past year. That includes Giordano's. That includes you. I'm Emily Mitchell now. From Portland. They can't. They can, and they will. FBI is thorough. They'll find discrepancies, track the identity change, connect it back to the boss. Vincent's voice was tight. They're building a RICO case. They want to flip witnesses. You'd be perfect, civilian, no criminal record, directly employed by Rizzo. Emily's stomach dropped. I don't know anything about his business. You know enough. You saw the meetings, served the tables, heard conversations. A good prosecutor could make you very useful. He paused. The boss wanted you to know they'll probably approach you in the next few days. He says to tell them whatever you want. He won't hold it against you. What? Emily stood, pacing. Vincent, I would never.
He knows that.
But he won't ask you to go to prison for him. If they offer you immunity to testify, he says take it. Vincent's voice softened. He's trying to protect you. One last time. Where is he? Preparing for the worst. Cleaning house, shutting down operations, setting up his people with severance packages. Vincent laughed bitterly. 8 years building an empire, and he's dismantling it in 3 weeks because he doesn't want anyone caught in the crossfire. This is because of me.
No.
It's because he saved you, then refused to be the monster everyone expected him to be. A pause. He's different since you left. Quieter. Makes decisions that prioritize people over profit. Vincent from 6 months ago would say he's gone soft. Vincent from today thinks maybe he's finally become the man his sister wanted him to be. Emily's eyes burned. Can I talk to him?
He said you'd ask. He said no.
Clean break is safer for you both. Vincent. He also said to tell you he's proud of you. For taking the chance at a new life. For being brave enough to start over. Vincent's voice roughened. And that if you're ever in real danger again, the kind where you need him, dial the same wrong number. He'll still answer. The line went dead. Emily sat staring at the ocean, her mind racing. Matteo was destroying everything he'd built rather than risk her being caught in the investigation. He was choosing her freedom over his empire. That's when she knew what she had to do. Special Agent Catherine Morrison of the FBI arrived at the Lighthouse Cafe on a Tuesday morning, her credentials out and her partner looming behind her. Emily Mitchell? We need to talk about your previous employment at Giordano's restaurant. Emily poured them coffee, her hands steady. Of course. What would you like to know? They spent 2 hours in a back booth. Emily told them everything about working at the restaurant, about the Friday dinners, about the coded conversations she'd witnessed. She gave them names, descriptions, patterns of behavior. What she didn't tell them was anything that would actually help their case. She described legal meetings that looked suspicious. She named people who had legitimate reasons to be there. She created a picture of a restaurant owner who ran a clean establishment that happened to attract a certain clientele. And Matteo Rizzo himself? Agent Morrison asked. What was your relationship with him? He was my employer. Professional. He asked about my work, made sure I was settling in. That's all. You were attacked 6 weeks ago. 3 blocks from the restaurant. Random mugging. They took my phone and $20. Our information suggests it was connected to Rizzo's territorial disputes. Emily met her eyes. Your information is wrong. It was a mugging. I filed a police report. Agent Morrison studied her. Miss Mitchell, if you're being threatened. I'm not. I left Giordano's because I wanted a quieter life. I found it here. That's the whole story. They left unsatisfied, but with nothing usable. Emily watched them drive away and knew she'd bought Matteo time. Maybe not much, but enough to finish whatever he was planning. That night, she did something she'd been resisting for weeks. She pulled out her old phone, the one with a saved number labeled voice, and sent a single text. I didn't tell them anything that matters. You saved my life twice. This doesn't make us even, but it's a start. She didn't expect a response.
Didn't get one.
But the next morning, she found an envelope under her apartment door. Inside was a key and a deed. The Lighthouse Cafe, fully purchased, transferred to Emily Mitchell's name. The note was simple. Every good life needs an anchor. Build something beautiful. Emily stood in her small apartment, crying, clutching a deed to a cafe she'd never dreamed of owning. Some debts, she realized, weren't about money. They were about seeing each other clearly, the monster and the nobody, and choosing to save each other anyway. 6 months passed like a dream Emily kept expecting to wake from. The Lighthouse Cafe became hers in every way that mattered. She repainted the walls a soft cream, added hanging plants that caught the morning sun, expanded the menu to include her mother's recipe for cinnamon rolls. The locals embraced her. Emily Mitchell, the quiet woman from Portland who'd bought Old Joe's Cafe and brought it back to life. She hired 2 part-time workers, Sarah, a college student saving for tuition, and Marcus, a retired fisherman who made the best coffee Emily had ever tasted. They were good people. Safe people. The kind who didn't ask complicated questions or have dangerous secrets. Emily's life became exactly what she'd always wanted. Simple, peaceful, predictable. She woke at 5 a.m. to prep pastries, opened at 6, closed at 2, spent evenings walking the beach or reading in her apartment. No black SUVs.
No coded conversations.
No weight of unspoken debts. She should have been happy. Instead, she found herself checking news reports from the city. The federal investigation into organized crime had resulted in 17 indictments, but Matteo Rizzo wasn't among them. His lawyers had dismantled the prosecution's case with surgical precision, proving Giordano's was a legitimate business that couldn't be held responsible for its clientele's outside activities. Castellano had gone to prison. 3 other families had been fractured. But Matteo had emerged untouched, if diminished. Word was he'd stepped back from active operations, focusing on his legal holdings, becoming the legitimate businessman he'd once pretended to be. Emily wondered if he thought of her. If he ever drove past her old apartment or walked into Giordano's and remembered the waitress who dialed wrong and changed everything. She told herself it didn't matter. Their worlds had intersected briefly, impossibly, and now they'd separated again. That's how these stories ended. Then came the night that proved her wrong. It was a Tuesday in late April, unseasonably cold. Emily had closed the cafe early due to a storm warning, dark clouds rolling in from the ocean, wind howling through the streets. She was in her apartment by 7 p.m., making tea, when someone started pounding on the door. Not knocking. Pounding. Desperate. Emily looked through the peephole and saw a woman, maybe 30, blood streaming from a cut above her eye, terror written across her face. Behind her, at the base of the stairs, Emily could see a man advancing, big, drunk, furious. The woman saw Emily's shadow behind the door. Please, she sobbed. Please help me. He's going to kill me. Emily's hand moved to the deadbolt, then froze. This wasn't her life anymore. She was Emily Mitchell, cafe owner, nobody special. Calling 911 was the smart choice. The safe choice. But the woman's voice, please help me, echoed with terrible familiarity. Emily opened the door. The woman stumbled inside. Emily locked and chained the door as the man reached her landing. He slammed against it, cursing. You don't know who you're messing with, he roared. That's my wife. Send her out. Emily pulled the woman, Melissa, she gasped, into the bedroom, grabbed her phone, and dialed 911. Except her hands were shaking, just like that night 6 months ago. And instead of 911, she dialed 961. It rang once. A voice answered, familiar as her own heartbeat. Emily? She almost broke at hearing her real name in his voice. There's a woman. Her husband is trying to break down my door. I didn't mean to call you, I meant to. Address. She gave it, words tumbling out. Police are 12 minutes away in this storm. I'm 40 minutes, his voice was calm, steady, the same tone that had saved her life once before. Lock yourself in the bathroom. Put furniture against the door. Don't come out until you hear sirens. Matteo. I'm already driving. Stay alive, Emily. That's an order. The line went dead. Emily did exactly as he said, barricading them in the bathroom while the husband continued his assault on her front door. Melissa sobbed quietly, and Emily held her hand, murmuring reassurances she didn't feel. Sirens came in 9 minutes. The police arrested the husband, took Melissa to the hospital, and questioned Emily about the incident. She told them the truth. A stranger needed help. She provided it, end of story. They left at 11:47 p.m. Matteo arrived at 11:52. He stood in her doorway, rain-soaked despite an expensive coat, his car idling at the curb. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the monster and the nobody, separated by 6 months and 200 miles that had felt like an ocean. You didn't need me, he said finally. The police came? I know. I'm sorry I called. My hands were shaking and I dialed wrong again. His smile was soft, sad. Seems to be a pattern with us. How are you? The question felt inadequate. Legitimate. Mostly. Boring, he shrugged. Turns out running legal businesses is less exciting than controlling empires. But I sleep better. I saw the news. The investigation is over. I survived. Changed, but still here. He glanced at her apartment. Modest, safe. Hers. You built something good. The cafe. I'm proud of you. Emily's throat tightened. Thank you. For everything. The cafe, the new life, for answering when you called. Both times, Matteo stepped back toward the stairs. I should go. You're safe now. That's what matters. Matteo, wait. He paused. If you're ever in danger, Emily said, echoing words he'd once spoken to her, dial the same wrong number. I'll answer. His laugh was surprised, genuine. A waitress protecting a reformed mob boss? That's a reversal. Maybe that's what we both needed. To reverse everything. He studied her for a long moment, and Emily saw in his eyes everything they'd never say aloud. The gratitude, the grief, the strange affection born from trauma and telephone wires. Good night, Emily Carter, he said finally. Live well. Good night, Matteo Rizzo. You too. He left, disappearing into the rain, his taillights vanishing into the storm. Emily stood in her doorway long after he'd gone, holding her phone, knowing with absolute certainty that he'd saved her number just as she'd saved his. Some connections couldn't be severed. Some debts were meant to be carried forever, not as burdens, but as reminders that in a world of chaos and violence and random chance, sometimes a wrong number was exactly right. Emily went inside, locked her door, and finally felt at peace. Not because the danger had passed, but because she understood now. She wasn't alone. She'd never be alone again. Somewhere in the city, a reformed criminal was driving home, his phone showing one saved contact he'd never delete: Emily. And somewhere in a coastal town, a cafe owner was brewing tea, her phone showing a contact she'd dial only in the most desperate moments: Voice. Two people who'd stumbled into each other's lives by accident and chosen, against all logic, to keep each other's numbers. Just in case the world ever tried to break them again. Just in case they needed saving one more time.
The end.